death, taxes, and Kirk Cousins playing like shit in prime time.
Till as old as time.
Nobody in NFL history has been worse on national television, and that was very clear in Week 2. Expectations were pretty high for Minnesota this season. The Vikings have a damn good team, and Kirk has weapons all around him, like Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. You're not supposed to get embarrassed by the Eagles with the whole country watching. Now look, I'll admit it, I'm a Kirk Cousins stan. He gets a lot more shit than he deserves. However, that was one of the worst games I have ever seen him play. Kirk only completed 55.3% of his passes and threw 3 interceptions. He finished the game with an abysmal 51.1 QBR and a 24-7 blowout. I will say, the first interception that Darius Slay snagged was absolutely Justin Jefferson's fault, and Troy Aikman even pointed that out on the broadcast. He just had a really lazy, bad cut, wasn't very sharp, and he knows better. That was not on Kirk, and for what it's worth, Jefferson also looked like shit. He was locked up by Slay all game. Yeah, he had 6 receptions for 48 yards, but when Slay was on him, he was locked up. There was another Slay pick in coverage of Jefferson, and I don't know what to tell you there, man. Kirk just threw that bitch up in the air in double coverage. I don't know, man. Avonte Maddox had an interception in between, and I still don't even know who the intended target is on this play. Either Kirk just never saw Maddox, or he just sailed the ball really bad. It was just another horrible Kirk Cousins primetime performance, and that's what happens, especially on Mondays. Kirk Cousins' record on Monday is utterly horrendous. As a Washington fan, I am fully aware of that stat because he didn't win a single Monday night game during his tenure. Kirk was 0-6, and there were some absolute stinkers in there, man. His first Monday night game was in 2014 against Seattle, a game that the Redskins lost 27-17, while Kirk only completed 58.3% of his passes, but he did throw 2 touchdowns, and he didn't have a pick. The next year, Washington played Dallas. This is one of the few games on this list I remember pretty well, even though I was only 15, but it was an incredible game. The Redskins and Cowboys were both ass, but a rivalry is still a rivalry. Kirk played well, completed 71% of his passes for 219 yards and a touchdown. I remember the game because it was actually so exciting. Nobody scored a touchdown until Dallas found the end zone with about a minute left, and then Washington got the ball back, and Kirk hit Deshaun Jackson to tie it. It was super hype. Then Dan Bailey hit a long field goal to win the game 19-16. In 2016 and 17, Washington actually got to play multiple Monday Night Football games. I don't know why the league felt the need to put fans through that, but of course, the Redskins lost all 4. In 2016, Kirk managed to not throw a single touchdown in either game, but did combine for 3 interceptions. Washington got blown out 38-16 by the Steelers, and then lost 26-15 to Carolina. Kirk played much better on Mondays in 2017. He only had 1 pick in the 2 games to 5 touchdowns, but Washington did still lose both games, and I will say that first loss to the Chiefs actually hurt. The Redskins went up 10 early, and it looked good, and they led in the 3rd quarter, and then the 4th started off tied, and KC hit 2 field goals and had a fumble return touchdown to win 29-20. Then about mid-season, the Eagles beat Washington 34-24. That takes us to Kirk's next chapter in Minnesota. He only had 1 Monday night game in 2018. He threw a touchdown, didn't turn the ball over, but the Vikings lost 21-7 to the Seahawks. Minnesota had 2 Monday night games the next season, and Kirk's stats were pretty rough. He completed just 57.9% of his passes against Seattle, and then only 51.6% against Green Bay. In all, he had 3 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Minnesota lost 37-30 to the Seahawks, and then got rocked 23-10 by the Packers. That put Kirk 0-9 on Monday. Absolutely brutal, but a flip was about to switch.
Do you even English, bro?
Kind of. In both 2020 and 2021, Minnesota played in 1 Monday night game, and both were against the Bears. 2020 Monday night, 4th quarter, Kirk Cousins finds Adam Thielen to make it 19-13, and ultimately to get the first win for Kirk on Monday. Then last season, Kirk won again, 17-9. To be fair, he actually played like shit in that game. Kirk only completed half of his passes, and he did throw a pick too, but he still won. He may have started 0-9, but Kirk did win 2 straight before losing in week 2. In 12 games on Monday, Kirk is 2-10 with 2,875 yards and 17 touchdowns to 11 interceptions with a passer rating 85.2. Thursday has been much kinder to Kirk. Still really bad, but better. Kirk played on Thursday 5 times when he was in Washington, and I unfortunately remember most of them. All of them were against division opponents, 3 against the Giants and 2 against Dallas. F the Eagles, I guess. The first contest came in 2014, and Kirk was horrible. He threw 4 interceptions, and Washington got curb stomped 45-14. The next year, he had a bit of a chance of redemption and ended up only throwing 2 interceptions that time. Washington lost 32-21. The Redskins' 2016 Thursday night game I remember very well, more or less because it was on Thanksgiving. That was the season that Dak Prescott took over, and Dallas was amazing. And you know what? Kirk Cousins played pretty damn good in that game. 449 yards and 3 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. It ended up being a close one, which no one saw coming, but the Cowboys did win 31-26. It's actually very odd, and I didn't remember this looking back, but Washington played on Thursday again the next week. I'm not sure I've ever really seen that happen before, but the Redskins lost 38-14 to Dallas. 5 games on Thursday in Washington, Kirk went 1-4. In Minnesota, Kirk has been good on Thursday for the most part, but his first game was a 38-31 loss to the Rams, but that was that Super Bowl LA team. Kirk played pretty well in that game. He completed 72% of his passes. He had 3 touchdowns. He didn't throw a pick. In 2019, Kirk faced off against Washington, and while he didn't throw a touchdown or an interception, he did complete 88.5% of his passes in a win. Last season, Kirk played horrible on Thursday against the Steelers, 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions, and he only completed 45.2% of his passes. In 8 games on Thursday, Kirk has thrown for 2,400 yards and 14 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. It's kind of the running joke that Kirk Cousins is just awful on prime time, and that's certainly true, but more depending on the day, really. His Monday record is horrendous, and Thursday was really bad. 3-5 isn't awful, but he's been fine on Sunday night. Maybe it's just something about the Lord's Day that really gets him going, because we all know that Kirk is great in the morning or afternoon slot, but even at night, he's been fine. Kirk is 4-4 on Sunday night, and while that's not a great number, he's struggled statistically on Monday and Thursday. That's not the case on Sunday night. Kirk has completed 71.8% of his passes for 2,356 yards and 18 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions. Also, at least worth pointing out that he has played in one of those very rare Saturday games too. Back in 2015, the Redskins pounded the Eagles 38-24 behind Kirk, who did play fantastic with 365 yards, 4 touchdowns, and not a single interception. Playing on national television, primetime, Kirk Cousins is 10-19. That isn't great, that's fair to say. He's thrown for 8,000 yards and 53 touchdowns to 26 interceptions. You would have probably actually thought that his stats were even worse, but honestly, that is an average of about 1 interception per game. But how good is Kirk not playing in primetime? Taking away his performances on the big stage, Kirk has thrown for 25,000 yards and 173 touchdowns to 68 interceptions. Plus, he's 50-41-2. At the very least, he is a much better quarterback when the spotlight is not on him. I've always wondered why that is. Like I've mentioned, I'm a big supporter of Kirk, and I've been following him and rooting for him since Washington drafted him back a decade ago. I've had the chance to meet him a few times, and I've always just been a big fan, but something just happens. Not even just in primetime, but in big moments. See, the problem with Kirk isn't that his stats are awful in prime time, or that he's all of a sudden a horrible quarterback. It's the fact that he doesn't elevate his game. It's a shame, because Kirk Cousins is a very good, talented quarterback, but for whatever reason, he struggles on national television, and he is statistically the worst primetime QB in NFL history.